story of the homeless huts in Holland. And today, we get an inside look at the very first finished hut.
60 square feet, a locked door, a real bed raised up off the ground, and a price tag of about $3,500. That is the entire thing. That is a Conestoga hut. And right now, volunteers across America are putting them up in church parking lots, on gravel lots behind community centers, and on scraps of city land that used to be nothing but weeds, mud, and tents. 2 people with a cordless drill can assemble one in a single afternoon. But the part almost everyone misses, the part that residents themselves say changed everything for them, is not the arched roof or the insulation or the little covered porch out front. It is something much smaller than any of that. It costs about $2. Let's go stand in front of one. Walk up to a Conestoga hut in a church parking lot in Eugene, Oregon, and the first thing you notice is that it does not look like a shed. The frame is a series of curved wooden ribs, bent into an arch, wrapped in insulation and a heavy weatherproof skin. It looks like the covered wagons in old paintings of the Oregon Trail, which is exactly where the name comes from. The door is on the short end. It is a real door, framed and hinged, with a real lock. There is a window beside it, and that window locks too. Step through, and you are standing in about 60 square feet, roughly the size of a small bathroom. Along one wall, there is a platform bed, sized for a twin mattress, built high enough that a person can slide bins and duffel bags underneath. There are vents cut near the top of the arch so the moisture does not sit. Outside the door, there is another 20 square feet of covered porch, which sounds like a small detail until you have tried to take your boots off in the rain. The walls are insulated, and the materials resist mold, which matters enormously in the wet Pacific Northwest winters, where these things were born. Now look around the inside for the things that are not there. No furnace or heater of any kind, no sink, no toilet, no shower, no running water, no kitchen. Electricity usually is not run into the hut at all. So on paper, this is a small insulated box with a bed in it. And yet people who have lived in one describe it the way other people describe getting the keys to a house. How does a plywood box with no heat and no water end up meaning that much to somebody? The answer starts in Eugene, Oregon, with a man named Eric DeBoer. DeBoer designed the Conestoga hut through an organization called Community Supported Shelters. And here is the detail most coverage skips entirely. The original idea was not about homelessness at all. It was a cheap, repeatable structure that any group of people could build together to form an intentional community with shared resources. In Eugene, what the community needed was shelter. The city had people sleeping under bridges along the Willamette River, in doorways downtown, in cars parked on quiet residential streets. Tents were failing. A tent does not survive an Oregon winter, it does not sit properly on asphalt, and it does not lock. So the city tapped community-supported shelters, and the organization expanded fast. A prototype in a workshop turned into more than a dozen small hut communities across Lane County, hosted on church land, on nonprofit property, and on lots the city itself opened up. Then Eugene did something almost no other city has done. It wrote the huts into local law. The city passed an overnight sleeping ordinance, allowing people to sleep in vehicles, in tents, or in Conestoga huts on approved sites. Up to 20 huts on a designated parking lot. Up to 6 at a church. And, in the detail that surprises almost everyone, a single hut in the yard of a private home, if the homeowner agrees to host it. Think about that for a second. In Eugene, a person can legally put a shelter in their own backyard and let someone sleep in it. Since then, the design has traveled to Walla Walla, Washington, to a class project in Redding, California, and to Victoria, British Columbia, where volunteers put one up in a parking lot in about 2 hours to prove to their own council that the model works. But none of that explains the thing residents keep coming back to. Ask someone who has actually lived in one what it gave them, and they rarely start with warmth. They start with the lock. Here is what happens on the street at night. When a person is living outside, the single most destabilizing thing that happens to them over and over is theft. And not primarily money. money is almost the least of it. What gets taken is paperwork. A birth certificate, a social security card, a state identification card, discharge papers from the military, prescription medication, the appointment slip a caseworker handed over. Every one of those is a step toward getting off the street. And everyone can vanish while a person is asleep or standing in line at a clinic. Then there is the second cost, which is physical. If nothing you own is safe anywhere, you carry all of it, all day, everywhere. Try walking into a job interview holding 3 bags and a rolled sleeping bag and see how that goes. A lockable door breaks all of that. It means a person can leave their things in one place and walk out with empty hands. It means the paperwork survives the night. It means sleep happens without one eye open. That is a $2 padlock doing work that no amount of good intentions can do. But the lock is only half the explanation. The other half is a paperwork trap most people have never heard of. And once you understand it, this stops sounding like a nice gesture and starts sounding like the only thing that could possibly work. Pay attention to this next part, because it explains everything. Say the theft already happened. Say a person's identification card is gone. To get a replacement state identification card, most states want 2 things: proof of identity and proof of address. Proof of identity usually means a birth certificate or a social security card. If those were in the same bag, they are gone too. And to order a replacement birth certificate from the state you were born in, most states want a photo identification, which is the thing you are trying to replace. Then there is proof of address. To have an address, you generally need somewhere to live. To rent somewhere to live, a landlord wants identification, which is, again, the thing you are trying to replace. So the door out of homelessness is locked, and the key to that door is inside the room. People get stuck in that loop for months, sometimes years, not because they are not trying, because the system has 3 requirements and each one requires the other 2. And no, that is not an exaggeration. That is how it works. A hut with a lock does something very specific to that loop. It gives a person a fixed location where documents survive long enough to be assembled into a stack, and it gives a case manager somewhere to mail things. In many programs, the site address itself works as a mailing address. The lock is not comfort. The lock is the first stable variable in an equation where every variable was moving. Which brings us to the money, because this is where the model either makes sense or falls apart. Community-supported shelters puts the average build cost at about $3,500. Other groups have quoted closer to $2,500, depending on lumber prices in their region. But that is the number for buying every piece brand new. A nonprofit in Athens, Ohio estimated that with reused and donated materials, the cost could drop to around $500 per hut. And an independent builder documented a slightly smaller 44 square foot version, built entirely from new materials, for under $900. Now hold that against the alternative that gets all the press. Tiny homes for homeless residents commonly run $20,000 or more per unit and take weeks to build, not hours. Purpose-built shelter buildings cost millions and take years of permitting before a single person sleeps in one. There is an ongoing cost too, and this is the number almost everyone forgets. Operating a 20-hut site with the water delivery and the garbage service and the sanitation and the staffing runs somewhere near $50,000 a year. Divide that out, and you are looking at a few dollars per person per night to keep someone sheltered, secure, and connected to services. For a lot of towns, that is less than what they were already spending on encampment cleanups. They were paying the money either way. They were just paying it to haul away tents. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. I cover the shelter programs, the housing workarounds, and the quiet county-level policies that actually get people off the street, and most of it never makes the local news. And before we go further, I want to point you towards something, because the most useful part of this topic is the part I cannot put in a video, the specific benefit programs. The exact wording on an application that gets approved instead of denied. The appeals process when you get told no. The order you file paperwork in that saves 4 months of waiting. The programs that quietly cover a security deposit or back rent. That kind of thing gets videos pulled down and channels struck. I have watched it happen to other people covering this. So I put all of it in a written guide called the Veterans Blueprint. It is built around the veteran housing and benefit system, because that system has more unmarked doors in it than any other one in the country. And I want to say this next part clearly, because most of the people it applies to do not think it applies to them. If you are the wife of a veteran, or the widow of one, or the daughter sitting at a kitchen table trying to sort out your father's paperwork, a large part of that guide was written for you. Survivor benefits, aid, and attendance. The housing programs a surviving spouse can access in her own name. Those are doors too, and almost nobody knows they are there. The link is in the description below this video. If you are watching on a television and cannot get to the description, it is also pinned at the top of the comments. Take it. Send it to whoever needs it. Now, a hut with a lock is a good start. But a Conestoga hut sitting by itself in an empty field does not work, and the people who build them will tell you that first. What makes the model function is the small village around it. In Eugene, these are called safe spot communities. A typical site holds between 3 and 18 huts around a shared common area, with a communal kitchen, drinking water, portable toilets, hygiene facilities, and a garbage service that actually shows up. There is a charging station for phones, which sounds trivial until you remember that a phone is how a person receives a call back about a job or a housing placement. A dead phone means that call goes to a voicemail box nobody can access. There are also rules, and they are not loose. Residents sign a written agreement covering noise, guests, and how the site interacts with the neighborhood. 3 written violations result in eviction. The operator holds a 1-year agreement with the city and has to meet performance standards to keep it. But here is the piece that separates this model from nearly every other shelter option in America. These communities accept people that traditional shelters turn away. People with a pet they refuse to abandon. People with a criminal record. People with no identification at all. People with an active substance use disorder. Couples who will not be split into a men's side and a women's side. Those 5 categories account for an enormous share of the people sleeping outside in every American city. They are not outside because no bed exists somewhere in town. They are outside because the bed comes attached to a condition they cannot meet. A woman is not going to hand her dog to animal control to get a cot for the night. So if the model is this cheap and this fast, and it reaches the people nothing else reaches, the obvious question is why there is not one in every town in America. Because getting a single site approved can take a year of public meetings, and it can get ugly. Athens, Ohio, 2025. A nonprofit called The Gathering Place spent most of that year trying to bring Conestoga huts to their city. The plan was modest. A handful of huts in a parking lot on North Congress Street, run by an organization that had already served more than 100 unhoused people in a 6-month stretch. The objections came fast. Residents raised concerns about the site sitting near a school. One said he had consulted an architect and a state building code professional, both of whom claimed the huts might violate state law on fire safety and public accommodation. The city's own law director had to step in and clarify the actual requirement. The fire separation distance between the structures is 30 feet, not 60. And Ohio's building code had already expanded what is allowed for primitive and semi-primitive lodging structures. The objection was not wrong on principle, it was wrong on the numbers. A local builder said he was all for helping unhoused people, as long as they were from Athens County. There were public hearings in September, then October, then November. And at one of those meetings, an intern at the organization stood up and asked a question that landed harder than anything else said that night. She pointed out that people who move into apartments and houses in Athens are almost never interrogated about the danger they might pose. And she asked the room to examine honestly whether their fear came from anything verifiable about this project or from an assumption about unhoused people generally. In late November of 2025, Athens City Council passed the ordinance unanimously. The program opened, and within its first stretch of operation, It had already moved residents out of unsheltered homelessness and into permanent housing. That timeline is worth holding on to. From a nonprofit deciding to try to a person actually sleeping behind a locked door took more than a year. Not because the huts are hard to build, because the zoning is hard to change. The build is 8 hours. The permission is 12 months. So what does it look like when someone actually lives in one? One of the Eugene hut villages was set up specifically for veterans. A resident there named James Clapp described it about as directly as a person can describe anything. He said the place pretty much saved his life. From that hut, he started looking for work. Another resident, Jeff Howard, used his hut as a base and eventually moved into his own apartment. He described it as a stable place to operate from. A stable place to operate from. That is the whole thesis of the model in 6 words, from a man who lived it. Because nobody involved is claiming a 60-square-foot box is a home. The huts are explicitly temporary. A typical stay runs from 3 months to 2 years, and during that window the resident gets case management, benefits enrollment, treatment if they want it, and a housing search with a mailing address attached to it. And if you want to know what residents think of them, look at the waiting lists. In Eugene, sites have run waits of 60 to 70 days. People sleeping outside in the rain are queuing up for 2 months for a chance at 60 square feet and a padlock. Now, in fairness, this model has real critics, and some of their points are good ones. The huts have no heat source, and in a hard freeze insulation alone is not always enough. There is no plumbing, so everything hinges on shared facilities being maintained. The structures wear out in 3 or 4 years, and a person living in 60 square feet through a long winter feels every inch of it. Then there is the larger criticism, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Micro-shelters can give a city a cheap way to look like it is solving homelessness while doing nothing about the shortage of affordable apartments underneath. If a town builds 20 huts and then stops, it has not fixed anything. It has just made the problem tidier to look at. The people who build these things tend to agree. Their own framing is that this is a bridge, not a destination. The measure of a hut village is not how many people live in it. It is how many people left it for something permanent. So what do you actually do with any of this? If you need shelter or you are helping someone who does, the entry point is almost always the same. Every region in the United States runs a system called coordinated entry, the single intake process that assesses people and prioritizes them for housing and shelter programs in that area. You reach it by dialing 211 or by contacting your local continuum of care, the regional body that manages homeless services for your county. Ask specifically whether there is a sanctioned camping site, a safe parking program, or a micro-shelter village in your county. Use those words. These programs are often not advertised anywhere, and staff at the food bank or the library sometimes know about them before the official directory has been updated. Get the name of whoever you speak to and write it down, because you will almost certainly have to call back. If you are a veteran or the spouse or surviving spouse of one, there is a separate and much faster track, and the guide linked below walks through exactly how to get on it. If you want to help build one, Community Supported Shelters sells a detailed manual covering the tools, the materials, and the 5 components built ahead of time in a shop. Churches are the most common hosts in the country, for a very unglamorous reason. A church parking lot sits empty 6 days a week. Groups need lumber donations, people who own a truck, and retired tradespeople more than almost anything else, because one retired carpenter is worth about 6 volunteers who have never framed a wall. And the least glamorous, most valuable thing anyone can do is show up to the council hearing and speak in favor. Athens is the proof. The huts were never the obstacle. The room was. The Conestoga hut is not a house. Nobody who builds them pretends otherwise. It is an arched wooden frame, some insulation, a bed platform, a vent, and a door that locks, and it costs about what a decent used car costs. What it buys is not comfort. It is the ability to close a door, put your things down, and stop guarding them long enough to make a phone call. For a lot of people, that has turned out to be the difference. Next week, I am covering the safe parking programs, the ones that let people sleep legally in their own car overnight, in a monitored lot with a bathroom and a security patrol. Most mid-sized cities have one, and almost nobody knows how to get on the list. Subscribe so that one finds you.